What would you do if one day, the life you thought was perfect turned out to be a cruel illusion? For years I believed I was living the dream. A happy marriage with Sarah, the woman I adored, and two beautiful children, Emma and Liam. My world revolved around them. I poured my heart and soul into building a good life for my family. Every extra hour I worked, every sacrifice I made, felt worth it when I saw their smiling faces. They were my reason to keep going, my motivation to push through the toughest days. I thought I had it all. But as I would soon learn, perfection can be nothing more than a fragile facade hiding unimaginable pain. Sometimes the cracks in a perfect picture are barely noticeable until it's too late. It started with subtle changes in Sarah's behavior, things so small that I dismissed them at first. She began spending more time glued to her phone, stepping out of the room to take calls in hushed tones. There were late-night work meetings and unexplained weekend trips. I reassured myself, brushing off the uneasy feeling gnawing at me. After all, Sarah was my wife, the person I trusted the most. Why would I doubt her? But little did I know those small changes were the first signs of a storm that would shatter everything I held dear. One Sunday morning, the storm arrived. Sarah left her phone on the nightstand while she took a shower. A message popped up, and though I rarely ever checked her phone, the preview stopped me in my tracks. It was from someone named Jake, and it read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My hands froze as my heart pounded in my chest. My mind raced to find a logical explanation, but deep down I knew this was no ordinary message. My perfect life was slipping through my fingers, and I felt powerless to stop it. I confronted Sarah later that day, trying to keep my voice steady even though my emotions were a whirlwind inside me. She laughed it off, calling Jake an old friend in need of help. She dismissed my concerns, even making me feel guilty for doubting her. She was so convincing that for a moment I wanted to believe her. But the seed of doubt was planted, and it began to grow. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. A few weeks later, my worst fears gained traction. I found a hotel receipt in her car, proof that she had been somewhere she hadn't told me about. She had claimed she was visiting her sister that weekend, but the receipt painted a different picture. When I confronted her again, she lashed out, accusing me of being controlling and paranoid. Her defensive reaction only deepened my suspicion. It became clear that she was hiding something, but the extent of her betrayal was far beyond anything I could have imagined. Then, a thought crossed my mind that made my blood run cold. I was playing with Emma and Liam in the backyard one sunny afternoon, and for the first time, I truly noticed their features. Emma's eye color didn't match mine or Sarah's. Liam's facial structure seemed oddly unfamiliar. It was a fleeting thought at first, but once it took hold, it consumed me. Could it be possible that the children I loved more than anything weren't biologically mine? The idea felt like a betrayal in itself, yet I couldn't let it go. Late at night, when the house was silent, I searched online for DNA testing kits. It felt like I was stepping into forbidden territory, questioning the very foundation of my family. Gathering the samples secretly from Emma and Liam was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I felt like a monster, betraying the innocence of the children who looked up to me with such trust. The waiting period was agonizing. Every time I looked at them, I prayed I was wrong, that my fears were unfounded. But in my heart, I braced for the worst. When the DNA test results arrived, I opened the envelope with trembling hands. The words stared back at me, unrelenting in their truth. Probability of paternity, 0%. Neither Emma nor Liam were biologically mine. My knees buckled as the reality hit me like a freight train. The life I had built, the love I had given, the sacrifices I had made, it all felt like a cruel joke. The betrayal wasn't just from Sarah. It was in the very foundation of the family I thought was mine. The days that followed were a blur of pain and anger. I replayed every moment in my mind, questioning how Sarah could do this to me. How could she let me love those children, knowing they weren't mine? I needed answers, but I also needed to be sure I had all the facts before confronting her. I became hyper-aware of her actions, noticing every smile she gave her phone, every evasion when I asked about her day. I even tracked her movements and recorded her conversations, desperate for the truth. When I finally confronted her, I laid everything out: the DNA results, the evidence of her affair. At first, she tried to deny it, but eventually the weight of the proof broke her. She confessed that Jake, her old college boyfriend, was the father of both children. The affair had started early in our marriage and continued for years. Her tears and apologies meant nothing to me. The damage was done, and there was no going back. Filing for divorce was both liberating and devastating. I cut all ties with Sarah and refused to support her financially. Yet, letting go of Emma and Liam was the hardest part. They weren't to blame, but the betrayal ran too deep. Starting over felt impossible at times, but I reminded myself that I deserved better, a life built on truth and loyalty. This journey taught me that betrayal doesn't just break trust, it breaks you. But it also showed me that even in the darkest moments, there's a way forward. To anyone facing a similar betrayal, know this: it's okay to feel broken. It's okay to grieve. But you have the strength to rebuild, to create a new life where honesty and love can truly thrive.